Okay, hi friends. How's it going? I feel like I've been teasing this video for like 2 years basically since I started my channel, and now it's here, it's happening. We are talking all about color, and maybe hopefully by the end of this video, at least a few of you will be thinking about color differently and a bit more thoughtfully, both in your home and just in general in life. So first things first, I think the most important thing to cover in this video is the correct language when we're talking about color. And the 3 words that you should really know are hue, value, and chroma. So the hue of a color is really just like the name of a color, right? Where it falls on the color wheel. So red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and everything in between. Just like baseline kindergarten understanding of color, right? So this is what people are referring to when they talk about complementary colors, which are hues that are opposite one another on the color wheel, or analogous colors, which are hues that are next to each other on the color wheel. Those ideas can definitely be helpful when you're combining colors and putting together a color palette, but it's pretty surface level. We can definitely go a bit deeper, because beyond that, we have to consider 2 very important aspects of color, and those are value and chroma. I feel like I mention color value a lot in my videos because I think about it a lot, but really it's just how light or dark a color is. And then we have chroma, which is the technical accurate word for what a lot of people, myself included, often call saturation. So how far it is from being like white, gray, or black of the same value, right? So we have our hues on our color wheel, and then the value of how light or dark those colors are, and then the chroma, how saturated those colors are, how far they are from being a gray of the same value. There is technically a difference between chroma and saturation. Chroma references how far a color is from being a gray of the same value, like I just said. And saturation references how pure a color actually is. So very deep, rich colors like a deep royal blue or like a wine red, they technically have a high chroma but a low saturation, if that makes sense. So once you have the vocabulary to sort of describe color in more detail, I think it sort of unlocks a different way of working with color. And by the way, I think I should mention that this is what color theory is. I think a lot of people that have never studied color theory and they just hear about design students learning color theory, they assume it's something like painting a kitchen yellow will make people happy or something like that, like the psychology of color or something. That's not what color theory is. In my color theory courses, we never talked about anything like that at all. Instead, we would have projects and exercises like mixing paints to create a color wheel with equal steps between each color, or organizing a huge amount of color samples by value, regardless of their hue, or finding the middle mixture between 2 colors, things like that. Actually, a lot of it was centered around Josef Alber's interaction of color, which I have right here. To show you guys some examples of what I'm talking about. Like this, for example, which is showing how the same color can read entirely different when it's placed on a different background, or the opposite, how 2 entirely different colors can read the same when they're placed on the right backgrounds. So it really has to do with how colors interact with each other. Thus the name, interaction of color. Many of you might know Josef Albers from his homage to the square, which is very well known. He was a German-American artist and teacher that immigrated to the United States when the Bauhaus was shut down in 1933. If you're interested in color or color theory, I really recommend diving into his work. Another really wonderful reference is this little book. This is Sanzo Wada's Dictionary of Color Combinations, which is from a collection that was originally published in Japan in the 1930s. It's just this little book that's full of really nice, harmonious color palettes. I found it to be a really great tool for sparking some inspiration when I'm building color palettes. Now, getting back to our terms, hue, value, and chroma, I want to talk about how I think about those aspects of color when it comes to interior and spatial design, because I think when most people hear the idea of designing with color, they picture something like this, a space with multiple very loud, strong colors and just some sort of unpleasant or harsh contrasts between them. I feel like it's a pretty clumsy reaction to avoiding a sort of colorless interior, that blank white box that everybody likes to hate, you know? But I honestly don't think this is any better than a sad, boring, colorless interior. In fact, it's usually a lot worse. I've told you guys in the past, but I think that colorless interiors can be so nice when they're done right. And the same goes for spaces with very highly saturated, loud colors. But both of those things are very difficult to pull off successfully because all these people really want to avoid having that boring white box. So they just end up with this really sloppy use of color, often in the name of dopamine decor, which is an ironic name because I've never looked at a dopamine decor interior and felt happy. But I want to break down why this sort of use of color isn't working, because basically these spaces are bringing in a lot of different colors and they're playing with a lot of different hues, but they're not playing with value or chroma at all. If we make an image like this grayscale, so we're only assessing the value of the colors, a lot of those really saturated colors begin to sort of blend into one another. There's not really any variation. And similarly, when you look at this photo, there's not really a single color that I would describe as subtle or soft or dull. Everything has a really strong chroma. I like to think about color palettes for interiors similar to how I think about material palettes. If you guys haven't seen my video on materials, I'll put it here. You can go watch it after this. But basically the idea is building out a spectrum and then filling in all the gaps. So for color, that means having a spectrum of hues from cool to warm, values light to dark, and chroma, sort of soft to strong. Filling in the middle colors on those spectrums helps us avoid those sort of clumsy moments of contrast that you see in spaces like this. So we could have like a bright red chair, for example, but it will look way better in a space where it's balanced by other colors that have different hues, values, and chroma from that chair. We don't need everything else in the room to be super loud and strong, but we also don't need everything else to be completely quiet and stark. That's why I generally would encourage restraint with super strong, high chroma colors. I just believe there's so much beauty in letting softer, more subtle colors sort of sing when they come together. And with that, letting the natural color of authentic materials sort of shine in a space. So for example, like wood tones can read as super red or orange or yellow, depending on their context, or things like the sort of natural green of glass or the cool bluish undertone of aluminum. When we don't disregard those as super boring neutrals that need to be overpowered by an obvious color, I think we open up the door for a really nice, harmonious palette. I think that's honestly why I tend to draw a lot of inspiration from nature when I'm putting together color palettes. I don't know if you guys have had a similar experience, but when you're out in nature on a hike or something, you can see such strong color in things like stones or the soil or the deep red and soft sages that are sometimes in greenery. It can all just feel so colorful when you open up your eyes to it. But the reason that those colors are shining through so much is because they're in a context with even softer, duller colors next to them. I'm somebody who, when I'm out on a hike or something, I love to collect little bits and bobs that I notice, like little stones or seashells, things like that. A lot of times I'm drawn to things that have really unique colors when they're out in nature, and I love bringing them home and seeing how that color behaves in my space. But if you bring things like that into a space like this, they just become totally overpowered. It's almost like candy that's too sweet, or like shampoo that smells too strong. It's just very overwhelming. There's no subtlety to a palette like this. And that's not to say I don't like the use of strong colors in an interior. I just think it should be used thoughtfully. Again, if you think about an example in nature, like a flowering plant or natural wildflowers. They're super strong colors, but again, they're in a context of much more subdued colors. So taking a color like that and flooding a space with it is just very intense to a human, I believe. Which sometimes intensity is the goal. You can think about maybe a commercial space or a small space in a home that isn't used too frequently. I think that can be a really cool opportunity to do something like that. But in general, in spaces that people are spending a lot of time in and really living in, I think it's better to err on the side of colors with lower chromas. Last month when I was visiting family in the US, I went to visit the Frey house in Palm Springs, and Albert Frey's use of color in that project is so inspiring to me. There's these yellow curtains that are a direct reference to the bloom of the landscape outside. And then a lot of the other materials, like the pale concrete, for example, is meant to just blend into the stone of the landscape. I just think that's so lovely. And even those of us without remarkable landscapes outside our front door, I think we can still look to Mother Earth for a little bit of inspiration for our color palettes. I think there's something very human and comfortable about that. Again, this is just me sharing my personal approach to color and how I think about putting together a color palette. There are many, many spaces that I think are super beautiful that don't necessarily take this approach. And speaking of putting together color palettes, I want to show you guys how you can do this using the sponsor of today's video, Milanote. So I've told you guys about Milanote in the past, but it's really become one of the main tools that I use when I'm organizing ideas for my interior design projects, especially in the early stages of design when I'm dealing with things like look and feel references or color and material concepts. This is a look and feel board that I put together for a project to organize and communicate my ideas for a color palette. Again, a huge part of designing with color is understanding how different colors interact with each other in a space. So when I'm working through these ideas, I really need somewhere where I can visually organize everything in one place instead of bouncing between like different Pinterest boards, random saved images, screenshots that my clients share, inspirations that they had. If I find an interesting inspiration image, say a paint color or a furniture piece, I can use Milanote's web clipper to instantly save it directly into my board without needing to screenshot or copy and paste everything manually. It makes the whole process of gathering references so seamless. It all goes to one organized place instead of having these messy screenshots on your desktop. And when I'm working on concept boards like this, I really appreciate that Milanote isn't rigid or spreadsheet-like. You can freely move things around and experiment visually, which honestly feels much more analog in a way, which I think can be really helpful for a design process. Testing different combinations, rearranging references, sort of comparing textures and finishes, and really just figuring out what works best before making any real decisions. And Milanote also has a bunch of built-in templates, which are really helpful if you're starting a project from scratch. Instead of this just like intimidating blank canvas, they give you a framework for organizing all of your ideas and creative direction. I also find it really useful when I'm working with clients because it makes collaboration really easy. I can just share the boards and my client and I can both leave notes directly on any images or plans. Any questions or anything we want to call out can actually live right on the board with Milanote. And along with that, the mobile app has been super helpful as well because it syncs directly with the desktop version. So if I'm out in the world when inspiration hits, I can quickly share a reference or make a note directly on the board. It updates in real time when I'm away from my computer, which is so nice. If you'd like to try out Milanote for your own creative projects, whatever they may be, you can sign up for free with no time limit using the link down in my description. Okay, now let's get back to our conversation about color, shall we? Okay, so we talked about combining colors and considering how different colors interact with one another. But I think another very important thing to consider when applying color to interiors is to think about what your color is highlighting. Where is that intentional contrast happening and why? This is the main reason I really dislike an arbitrary painted accent wall, just drywall that meets more drywall painted a different color without any sort of architectural definition, but I think that using that same paint color to highlight either architectural molding or some sort of structural detail in a space can be really, really wonderful. This is the same reason that I have such a strong aversion to mundane daily use tools that are really bright colors. Like the most classic example is a kitchen sponge that lives next to the tap. It just drives me crazy because very strong colors are meant to draw our eye to something. And it just feels so thoughtless to draw attention to boring, uninteresting, unimpactful things. Another example that I see every once in a while are really brightly colored light switch covers, like light switch plates. I just don't know why we're calling attention to something that's so plain and arbitrary. And at the same time, I'm somebody who really finds beauty in simplicity, and especially the simplicity of everyday objects and tools. So I feel like when these things are just trying to do too much and be sort of flashy, it like really drives me crazy. I can't tell you how many beautifully designed kitchens I've been in that have like a really bright pink or neon green sponge right next to the sink. And while that's something that really just annoys me visually, personally, I do think that there's an important sort of design lesson there. When we're designing spaces, it's really important to remember that the sort of things and people that will occupy the space are going to bring a lot of color and sort of visual interest to a space. So I think it's important to design interiors that are sort of ready for that and have a place for everything, obviously. But a really nice example of this is like a bookshelf or a library or some sort of place that's meant to catch objects that are not meant to be put away. Grouping these things that might have really strong colors and like high variation in their colors, putting them all together in one place allows them to read as sort of one element, sort of like a mosaic, which is way nicer than the sort of visual chaos that can come from a bunch of objects being spread all over a room. But this really only works nicely if you don't color coordinate your books. So none of that, please. Okay, I feel like I definitely could have more to say, but I feel like I laid out my basic sort of color ethos, and I really need to run because it's almost 9 p.m. on a Sunday here in Copenhagen. Somehow, even though we are moving into summer, I'm still racing against the clock to finish filming before the sun sets, as always. So yes, I hope this was an interesting chat. Maybe you're thinking about color a little differently than you did before. I really am a huge fan of color in design when it's done well. I just think it needs to be done very thoughtfully and intentionally. But yes, that's all for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.